There is something happening in your nervous system right now that should not be happening. Not because you are in danger, not because anything is wrong, but because a system that was built to protect you from immediate physical threats is being triggered by things that have no physical form at all. Emails, deadlines, social media notifications, the news, the future, other people's opinions of you, things that cannot hurt you, things that in many cases do not even exist yet. And that system, once activated, does not know how to stop, because it was never designed to stop on its own. It was designed to stop when the threat was gone. And in the ancient world, threats were always eventually gone. In the modern world, they never are. This is not a character flaw. It is not weakness. It is not something that went wrong with you specifically. It is a precise and predictable collision between a nervous system that is 300,000 years old and a world that is about 300 years old. Let's go. Start with what anxiety actually is, not what it feels like, what it is. Anxiety is the activation of the threat response system in the absence of a specific, immediate, physical threat. The racing heart, the shallow breathing, the muscle tension, the tunnel vision, the inability to think about anything except the source of the fear. These are not symptoms of a malfunction. They are symptoms of a system working exactly as designed. Every single one of them evolved to help you survive a specific kind of danger. Racing heart, pumping blood to muscles that need to move fast. Shallow, rapid breathing, getting oxygen to those muscles as quickly as possible. Muscle tension, preparing the body to fight or run. Tunnel vision, narrowing focus to the immediate threat, blocking out everything irrelevant. Inability to think about anything else, because in a genuine emergency, thinking about anything else gets you killed. This system is extraordinary. In the environment it was built for, it is one of the most elegant survival mechanisms that evolution has ever produced. It activates instantly, operates without conscious thought, and prepares the body for action with remarkable precision. The problem is not the system. The problem is what triggers it now. For most of human history, the threats that triggered this response were physical, immediate, and finite. A predator near the camp. Activate, respond. The predator leaves or you escape. The threat is over. The system returns to baseline. A rival group approaching. Activate, respond. The confrontation ends one way or another. Threat resolved, baseline restored. Flood, fire, injury, starvation. All concrete, all finite, who all eventually resolved. The threat response was not designed for threats that never end. It was not designed for worries about things that might happen next month. It was not designed for the ambient dread of reading news about disasters on the other side of the world. It was not designed for the low-level social threat of not knowing whether people like you. When you activate this system with a thought, not a predator, not a physical danger, just a thought, and that thought does not resolve, and there is no physical action you can take to discharge the activation, the system stays on. The cortisol keeps flowing, the muscles stay tense, the heart stays elevated, and if this happens enough, for long enough, the system begins to calibrate itself upward. The threshold for activation drops. Things that should not trigger a threat response begin to trigger one. The body moves into a state of chronic low-level activation that we call anxiety disorder. And that is, at the biological level, a nervous system that has been trained by repeated, unresolved activation to be permanently ready for a threat that never stops coming. Now here is the part that almost nobody talks about. Ancient humans experienced fear. They experienced terror, in fact, genuine, acute, intense terror. A predator in the dark is terrifying. A rival group attacking is terrifying. Watching someone you love die of an injury in a world without medicine is terrifying. But ancient humans almost certainly did not experience anxiety the way modern humans do, because their fear had two things that modern anxiety almost never has: a clear object and an end. The fear was about something specific and visible, and it ended. The predator was gone. The attack was over. The crisis resolved. The nervous system discharged the activation, returned to baseline, and rested. Modern anxiety is frequently about nothing specific and visible. It is about the future, which does not exist yet. It is about other people's thoughts, which you cannot see. It is about possibilities, not actualities. It is about things that might happen, which your nervous system cannot distinguish from things that are happening, because the nervous system reads a vivid thought about danger the same way it reads actual danger. You are producing a cortisol response to a thought, and the thought does not end because it is not real. There is no predator that leaves. There is no attack that concludes. The thought continues, the system stays activated, and the body pays the cost. Now let us talk about something else that ancient humans had that we have almost entirely lost. And this is the piece that I think matters most. They were almost never alone with their thoughts. A band of 150 people is never quiet. There is always something happening, someone to talk to, something to do, a task that requires your hands and your attention, a problem that requires your body, not your mind. Physical work is one of the most powerful anxiety reduction mechanisms ever discovered. Not because it distracts you from your problems, but because it completes the stress cycle. The threat response was designed to end with physical action. When you move your body, genuinely move it, through real physical effort, cortisol gets metabolized, adrenaline gets used, the activation discharges, and the system returns to baseline. Ancient humans moved their bodies all day long, not in a gym, not on a structured exercise schedule, but in continuous varied physical effort that was simply the texture of daily life. Carry water, build the shelter. Hunt, gather, walk, lift. The body was always doing what it was built to do, and as a side effect, the stress cycle was always completing. Modern humans sit still. They experience a stress response to an email. The cortisol floods in, and then nothing happens. Because there is no physical action available, you cannot run from an email, you cannot fight a deadline. The activation has nowhere to go, and it builds. There is also the question of what ancient humans looked at, or rather, what they did not look at. The modern anxious person is consuming, often continuously, a stream of threat information, news about disasters, crime, disease, political catastrophe, economic collapse, all of it real, all of it genuinely concerning, none of it within their ability to act on. The ancient humans' threat information was local and actionable. There is a predator in the valley. That is information you can do something about. There is a drought coming. That is information you can respond to. Move, change, adapt. Bad news from the other side of the planet about things you cannot influence, delivered in a continuous stream with no resolution, to a nervous system that cannot distinguish between local and distant threat. This is not information. This is, at the level of the nervous system, a permanent predator that never leaves. You were not built for this. Your threat response was calibrated for a world where threats were local, physical, finite, and actionable. It is running on a world where threats are global, abstract, infinite, and mostly unresolvable. And it does not know what to do with that. So it does the only thing it knows how to do. It stays on. What can you do with all of this? You cannot turn off the news and expect the anxiety to disappear. The system has already been trained. The threshold has already dropped. But you can understand what is happening. You can recognize that your anxiety is not a malfunction. It is an ancient system doing its ancient job on inputs it was never designed to receive. You can give it what it was designed to run on. Physical movement, especially when you feel the activation beginning. Not later, not at the gym tomorrow. When you feel it. Walk. Lift something. Move your body in any way that is real and physical. Complete the cycle. You can reduce the stream of unactionable threat information. Not because ignorance is better, but because a nervous system consuming 20 threats a day that it cannot resolve is a nervous system that will not return to baseline. You can find people, not screens, not followers, people. The presence of people you trust is one of the most powerful signals of safety the human nervous system knows. In the ancient world, being with your group meant you were safe. That signal still works, and you can recognize that the feeling of anxiety, as overwhelming as it is your body trying to protect you. It is doing what it was built to do. It is just doing it in a world it was not built for. That is not your fault, but it is your problem. And knowing exactly why it is happening is the first real step toward doing something about it.